For the second half of the semester, we're going to be using the techniques and tools that we've already learned in order to understand some of the buildings that we have here on the Clemson campus. This is an example of a Peter Eisenman project where he's using some of the same techniques that we've already learned in order to develop projects. So you should understand this is one way that projects actually are developed. So for this assignment, you've all been assigned a building and you've also been assigned at least one and maybe two partners. You should work together to measure the Clemson building on campus. With your partner, you're going to measure the elevation, and then you're each going to create an individual drawing of the elevation. So you and your partner should start out by visiting the building. You should sketch, take notes, take some photographs, and measure the building using some of the techniques that I'm about to introduce to you. Second, you should work together in studio to create a measured elevation of the building. And then finally, you will need to each create a final hardline drawing on hot press watercolor paper or another heavy drawing paper. One of the things that you're also going to be introduced during this next assignment is how to draw a drawing at a particular scale. So first, before you move on, I hope that you will have some time to reflect on what you have learned so far and what you can bring forward. Many of the techniques and skills that we've already learned, we're going to repeat for the second half of the semester with the building that you've been assigned. So first, what is an elevation? So far, we've really only been working in plan, so we've been looking down at our projects. This project is going to look at the elevation of the building, which is a drawing of an exterior of a building as seen from a horizontal position with no perspective. So one of the hard things to understand in this next step is that you will never have lines that vanish. This is a image of a building that you actually can never have in real life because we can never look at something completely 2D. But it is a drawing convention that architects use a lot. So first, what is an elevation? So an elevation, you can sort of see here, this is a diagram of what an elevation might see. You can see the bottom on the bottom of the box, and then you can see the elevations on the four sides. Orthographic projection. So this is one technique for understanding what orthographic projection is. You should understand that orthographic projection basically is how all of the different drawings are connected. So you can see there's a direct relationship between the bottom, the top, and the front of the building. And there's also a relationship to all of the sides of the building. So first, how do you begin to measure these really large buildings? So the first thing I would encourage you to do is sketch. So take notes about alignments, how things kind of work together. You can sort of see that here in some of these sketches that have been taken from sketchbooks. The second thing, you probably want to take notes, and you want to take a lot of photos because those are going to be really helpful when you come back to studio and you've got to actually figure out how to construct the drawing. And then you're going to measure. So you can measure with a ruler. You should always start by taking an overall measurement instead of lots of small measurements. And then this is also why you need help from your partner, because these are very large things that you're going to be measuring. You can also measure with your body. So you can measure with your hands, height, stride, arm, foot. Lots of architects are able to measure spaces with their strides. You can also take photos of you standing in front of your building. If you back far away to take those photos, then you can actually use the body to proportionally figure out the height of the building. And then proportions. So lots of times you're going to find the proportions that we have been studying so far in our class in these buildings. Just about every single building that you will be drawing will use fourths and thirds to divide up the facades. So once you find those ordering systems, you'll be able to use them. One of the new things you're going to be learning to do is how to use an architect's scale. So, each of the buildings on the building list, it tells you which scale to draw the building at in order for it to fit on the sheet of paper. So 1/4 of an inch equals a foot. What that means is that 4 foot is drawn as 1 inch, and 2 foot is actually drawn as a 1/2 an inch. An 1/8 of an inch equals a foot means that 8 foot is drawn as 1 inch, and 4 foot is drawn at a 1/2 an inch. And the architect scale that each of you should have gotten for the course actually helps you figure this out. So the way this works, if you'll look at the very bottom of this slide, you can see that if you read it from the left to the right, those are the spaces for an 1/8 of an inch equals a foot. If you read it from the right to the left, those are the numbers that correspond with 1/4 of an inch equals a foot. So for instance, right here, this example is showing you what 1 foot and 3 inches looks like. And you can see it counts all the way up to 92 feet at an 1/8 of an inch. The 1/4 of an inch only goes to 46 foot. But that's how you read this. We will be doing an in-class exercise so that you will have some practice. And then finally, we've asked you to create some process work for you to begin working on these with. And these are what I would say are examples of process. So these are not done, but they are kind of blocked out. They still need a lot of detail on them. This you can do with vellum or trace, and this is what we would like to see by Friday. These are examples of what the final elevations might look like. So you can see here the one on the top actually starts showing material, and then the one on the bottom is even trying to show some of the shadows. So if you're interested in doing that, we can talk about that. This is not a project that you'll be able to sit down and immediately draw the final elevation. You will have to do it a couple of different times using trace paper to add in more detail and fix things as you go along. So this is a drawing that you will need to be working on over the whole next week.